Alright, so in this tutorial I'm going to basically cover how to make an accordion. And if you click down here, I can click on it and this is what it looks like. So you click and each little section pops up. Okay. Just be aware too with these that you can just download this, so you could just save link as. And then it will save the HTML document and then you can actually look at it. It's just this code over here, but if that helps, you know, that's what you're doing. Okay, so this is a lot like the read more, but a little bit different because you have different sections wherever you can expand. And these are pretty useful, again, for doing responsive things and like that. All right, first thing I got to do is open up Visual Studio Code. All right, and we're just going to do File, New File. All right, and in here we're just going to write the basic, what we always start with everything. I'm just going to pause it, write this up, and then come back. All right, just wrote the basic thing here. I got to save this. So Command Shift S, got to save it. And okay, and we're just going to call this accordion example.html. All right, good. So now I got the accordion. Got a little extra something there. Okay, I got the accordion example.html. And basically I'm just going to write what's, let me minimize this. I'm just going to write what's here. Okay, so, where's the thing? That's not it. Where are you at? There you go. Okay, let's get rid of this, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what I need to do for my HTML is basically make buttons and then sections. Okay, so so what we're going to do is body. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to make a button. This will be the thing that I click on, and we're going to give it a class. And I'm just going to go ahead and call it. Get out of here. All right. I'm going to call it the accordion BTN. Oops. BTN for accordion button. So that way I know what it is, and this way that's what I'll use to select it. And I'm just going to write accordion 01. That's just what's going to be inside the button, and oops, that was already closed. Like so. Boom. So there's the first button, and then inside of that, I'm going to make a div class. Okay, and that's just going to be accordion PNL for panel, and then inside of that, I'm going to put a P. All right, and we're just going to say expanded section text that is so informative. Okay, so this is basically the way it works. So if I go ahead and save this, and we will open it, open up accordion. This is what it looks like. So you got a button, and we got this. Okay, so nothing too fancy quite yet, but you get the idea. All right, great. Let's make this bigger actually, so you guys can see a little bit better. And then I'll do Command plus plus plus. I've been making these way too small, so I apologize for that. All right. And so I would just do that multiple times. So what I'm going to do is actually, so it's going to be a button and then the section that gets expanded. By default, it's already showing up, but this part will be hidden to start with, this. And then when I click this accordion button, this will appear, kind of like the read more. So I'm just going to grab this and Command C, enter, Command V, enter, Command V, and you can do however many makes you feel good. Okay, so we'll do that many. And I'm just going to put a space between them so it's a little more obvious each section. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this one accordion 2 and accordion 3. All right, that way you can see it. Now, they're still going to be the same class names, okay? Because that way I don't have to write a code for each and every one of them. I'll write a code that does all of them. And the same thing with the accordion panel. So I'll just be called accordion panels. I'm just going to go ahead and save that, just so that that's done. And let's go ahead and do some CSS. And then when that's done, we'll do the actual JavaScript. So the CSS, got to write style, because you got to have style. Now, again, you could do a separate CSS sheet, or you could just do it inside here. I'm just going to do it inside here to make it a little bit easier. And okay, so first thing I want to do is that you probably noticed that when we looked at it, it was right here. When you look at it, it doesn't look much like an accordion. It's just like this ugly button. I want it to look like the example. So I'm just going to format the button, the accordion button, to look less like an accordion button and more like something else. So if you remember, it has this class right here. So I'm just going to use that as my selector. So dot accordion btn. And boom. Okay, so we have our selectors. So things I want to do is background color, and let's just do gray, because I don't really care. Let's do light gray. But I would probably choose a more nicer color. Color, so the actual what's inside of it. And I'm just going to put black because actually let's do dark gray. Not dark gray. Dark gray. Okay, I don't know if that's going to look good or not, but we'll just go with it. Cursor. Okay, and we're just going to say pointer. All right, basically what this does is that right now, if you were to look at, get over here. If you look at it, when I hover over it, see it doesn't look like anything special. This will make it look like a button. So just like when you look at a link, you know, it changes. The cursor will change into, in this browser, it'll turn into a like a little finger, so that you know you can click on it. There's nothing really to tell us that, but if I do this cursor pointer, it should make it a little bit more obvious. Okay, so that's what that's for. Padding, just to give the button some space. And we'll do 15px. Okay, so width, I'm just going to make it go all the way across. So I'm going to do 100%, so that way it goes the entire span of the browser window. Text align, and we're just going to go ahead and do that on the left. So just so that the text is on the left side. Border, I'm just going to do none, because what I want is, you see the button has like that border on it. I don't want it. That's what makes it look like a button. We're also going to turn the outline off and do none on that. Okay, so that way there's nothing there. And we're going to do a transition. And basically that's just going to control how long it takes for it to change. Now let's go like that. Okay, so that will control the button, and if I save that and we go to this and hit Command R, you can see it looks a bit nicer, right? And notice that, like, see what I was saying about the cursor? See how it turns it to the hand? Okay. Yay. Okay. Dark gray kind of sucks, but I can change that to black after. And we'll change it to black now. So I'm just going to do black. There we go. Okay. Good. So that's all fine and dandy. Now what I need to do is, you'll notice that when I hover over it, it doesn't do anything special. So I need to do something for that. So we're going to do dot accordion button, and then we're going to do hover, just like we do when we do an A element. You do A and then hover. And we're also going to make another class called active. So basically, actually, we'll leave that alone for now. We'll come back to that. So we'll just do hover, and then it's just going to be background color, and we will do, what do I got? I have light gray, right? Is it like a really light gray? Light gray, like that. And then let me see if I hover over this, will it let me? Come on, give me a, all right, let's try, I don't want to do white. Blue violet. It's gonna look ugly. I don't really care, but that way you can kind of see. All right. And again, if I save it now and open it up, you can see now, and you can see how the transition takes 4 seconds, or 0.4 seconds. So not a half a second, but looks nice, right? So, I mean, for being blue violet. Okay. And the next thing I want to do is format the actual panel that will be expanding. Okay, so accordion PNL. So that's the class, remember, we named there. And we're going to do padding, and we're going to do 0 for the one side, px, oops, not ps, px, and 15px. Okay, so what that's going to do is Command R. It's just going to put some here, but not on the above. So basically, it just puts it on the left and right. Okay, and then the top and bottom will be 0. All right, so we're going to do padding. We'll do background color, and we'll just do white, and display, and we're going to do none, because we're going to turn it off by default. You don't see it until we click on that button. And on top of that, we're also going to do overflow. We're going to do hidden on that as well, so that way you can't see it at all. All right. All right, and if I were to look at it, I don't feel like doing it, you'll just see that it's disappeared. Okay, so now we have that going. So now what we need to do is actually put in our JavaScript, and it's relatively simple. So what we're going to do is, after this is done, I'm just going to go ahead and put my style in here, or not style, sorry, my script. Okay, and we will make our stuff. So first thing I'm going to do is I need to make variables that are going to hold, a variable that's going to hold my, my accordion button. Okay, so I'm going to do variables, not var. I'm going to call it ACCBTN, so an abbreviation for accordion button, and that will be equal to, I'm going to look in the document, right? Document.get element by class name, elements by class name, because I'm getting more than one, okay, because there's a bunch of them that have those elements. So we're going to be storing a bunch of them in a single variable. And then we'll do accordion btn. All right, and good. So basically what it's going to do is I made a variable called this, and what it's going to do is it's going to look in the document. It's going to get all elements that have the accordion button. So basically it's going to select all these and stuff it into this, which is going to make this an array, because an array, if you remember, is a list of items. All right. Then we're going to make another variable called I, and this is just going to be our counter. Okay, that's the idea behind it. So it's just there for that. All right, boom, let's scroll up. Okay, now we're going to do a for loop that's basically going to, it's going to like go through it for us. Okay, so we're going to do for, we're going to say I, we're going to set it to 0 to start with, our counter. Okay, so I equals 0. And then we'll do and while our counter is less than, let's put spaces in here. I think it might make it a little bit easier to see. While I is less than the account btn dot length, and then every time you run through this bit of code, add 1 to it. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and like that. Okay, so all it's saying is that start I is 0, and then, which means that the first time it runs through this code, I is going to be equal to 0. And then while I is less than the account button dot length. So you remember up here, I made the variable called account btn, or I keep saying account, accordion btn, so ACCBTN, and it stores all of these, right? So if you look, there's 3 of them. That's how many we made. So this object has a function, basically, the dot length. So what it says is however many items are in there. So while I is less than the current number of items, run this loop. And every time it runs a loop, it's going to add 1. If you remember, 2 plus is equal adding 1. It's called increment, okay? So basically, it's going to start at 0. So when it stores these elements in here, right? So there's 3 of them. So it's going to store 1 into position 0 of account or of ACCBTN. Then it's going to store those. So this one's going to go in position 0. This is going to go in position 1, and this will go in position 2. So the first time it goes through, it's going to say, okay, 0 is less than the length. And then it's going to go again, and it's going to say, okay, 1 is less than the length. And then when it gets to 2, 2 will be the last time because that's how many it has. Okay, so the length of it will be the number of items in there. Okay, so now we're going to say account, or I keep saying account, accordion btn. Okay, and then we're going to put I. And then dot add event listener. Click. And I'll explain what it is after because it's probably a little confusing. Function. Like that. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's basically going to go through this part here, it goes through all of the items, right? So it'll run this loop as many items as are currently stored in here. And right now we have 3. Then this line of code here, what it's going to do is that, see how it says ACCBTN? So if you remember, I said there's position 0, 1, and 2. Because there's 3 items in there. So if I did this, if I did ACCBTN and I did this, what that means is that this result, if I wrote this out, it would be this one right here. If I did a 1, it would show me this one, and if I did a 2, it would show me this one. Okay, so this is the index of each one of those. That's basically what this represents. Okay. Because it's an array. Now, the reason why we have I there is because simultaneously as we're using I to count, I will run through this the first time as 0. So we're saying here, button 0, the first one that's stored in here, I'm going to go ahead and add an event listener to it. I'm going to add it. I'm going to make it a button. I'm going to make it something that listens for something. Okay, that's what an event listener does. So it's going to listen for, and the thing it's going to listen for is going to listen for a click. So if it gets clicked on, and then if it gets clicked, the thing it's going to run is this function that we're about to write. Okay, and basically it's going to run through this loop, and every time to each button, it's going to add an event listener that has a click, and it runs a function. So basically this loop here is going to make our thing happen. Okay, so I just did a function. So it's kind of like a function inside of a for loop, so it's a little bit weird, but that's kind of how it works. Okay, so inside of this function that we just made, make sure you tab in, we're going to say this dot class list dot toggle toggle, and we're going to say active. Okay, so what this is going to do, and I didn't do it up here yet, we're going to turn on when it gets clicked and when it runs this function. The first thing it's going to do is this means whatever item I currently have selected. In this case, it's that first button. Okay, when it runs the first time, it'll be the first button. So that's what this means. It means whatever you just clicked on. Class list means it's going to look at the classes, and then it's going to toggle on active, that class. But if you look, I don't have an active class. I'm going to put it here. So after this, I'm going to do comma dot active. So basically, also, if that button is clicked on, that it was the thing selected, it will turn it. So right now, you know, when we hover over it, right, see how it turns blue? But when I click on it, it will also turn it blue. Right now, it'll turn them all blue because it doesn't turn them back off. Okay, that's basically what this does. Is it's turning on this. That's what this dot toggle active is doing. All right. So that's the first thing it's going to do when you click on it. It's going to go ahead and turn on the active coloring. Now I could have made it a separate one, but I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback off of our hover because they're kind of the same thing anyway. But you could make it a separate one so that it looks different than the hover. Probably should, but I'm not going to because I'm lazy. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make a variable called the ACCPNL, which is going to represent the panels here. Okay, so variable panel, and we're going to set it equal to this dot next element. Did I spell that right? Sibling. Okay. So this is kind of like when we do get elements by class name. Right now, if I did get elements by class name, it would store all of the panels into the single one, right? So I'd have blah, 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 blah. And I could kind of do the same thing I did up here, but I have to set up another for loop to put it on each one. But if I just say this next element sibling, what that's going to do is going to say whatever one we're currently on, and in this case, the thing I'm currently on is this accordion button right here. It's going to look for the next element. So it just goes right down, the next sibling, and that's the next div. Because after each accordion, the next thing is that accordion panel. So it's going to take the element, and it's just going to store it into this. So there's only a single thing in this. This is not an array. It only stores the one element. All right? And that way I'll have access to that, and I can change the way that looks. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to say if that PNL, the variable we just made, dot style dot display is equal to block, it's going to change the ACCPNL dot style dot display equal to none. Okay, so let's explain what that is. Basically what this is doing, it says, okay, if that element, if the style of it has a display, right? So if you look up here, the we do have a style applied to it underneath it called display that is none. So if the display of its style is oops, sorry, up here. If the display of the style is equal, means it's absolutely this. If it's block, which block would mean on in this case. So if it's on, turn it off so it becomes not visible. Okay? But, and then I'm just going to put this here so just to abbreviate the code a little bit. Else, right? We're going to tell it to ACCPNL.style.display. Else, we're going to set it to block. Okay. So basically, if it's currently on, turn it off. And if it's off, because this would not be true, then turn it on. So basically, this is just a toggle. It'll turn it on and off depending on what the opposite of whatever it currently is. Okay. Now, the other thing I need to do that I didn't quite finish on this is if you look, this is an event listener, right? This is actually one line of code that goes all the way to here. So what I need to do is, let me delete this to get this back up here. It makes it a little bit easier. Okay. So this function is this whole business here. But if you look, see how this parenthesis starts? It closes down here. This is the end parenthesis. You can see when I highlight it. So I actually need to put a semicolon there. And then we'll save that. And if I click in here and refresh it, you can see pretty neat, right? There you go. This feels a little bit slow. I wonder if I can change that real quick. Let's do 0.2. Command S. Command R. Yeah, it's a little bit better. It felt like a little too slow, the transition. All right, so that's an accordion. It's pretty straightforward. The code is relatively short. Hopefully you kind of understood it. As you do this, you're going to start to see the same kind of repeating patterns, and it should hopefully make a little bit more sense as time goes by. All right, so then we just save it, and voila. So that's the accordion. So if you want to make an accordion, follow that, and obviously you can adjust it and change your colors and, you know, to your own likings and make the section, the accordion buttons different, whatever you want to do. But that's a real generic way of doing it. So good luck.